position of this particle is, or where the future position of this mass is. This is classical mechanics, but quantum mechanics is in a different way. Why it is a different way? Because if we know the position, it is very difficult to calculate the momentum. If you know the momentum, it is very difficult to calculate the position vector. Actually, what is this we have? The de Broglie wavelength is given by h by m into v. What is h? The wavelength, and the wavelength equivalent in the normal linear this thing is represented by delta x, which is equivalent to h by m represents delta p, or this is modified as delta x dot delta p is greater than or equals to h bar. So here what does it say? If we know the position vector, it is very difficult to calculate the momentum. If we know the momentum, it is very difficult to calculate the position. Let us take a wonderful example. Let us assume that an electron is moving. This is the nucleus. This is the nucleus, and here we have an electron which is moving around the nucleus in an orbit. So when an electron is moving, which implies that electron's velocity is known. When the electron's velocity is known, we know its momentum. When the electron's momentum is known, we don't know what is its position. We don't know the position. It is very difficult to know the position of an electron. If you are going to localize the electron, if you are going to find the position of the electron, it is very difficult to calculate the momentum, because now when we are trying to localize the electron, it implies that we are trying to bring the electron to rest, or we are trying to localize the electron, we are trying to fix the locality, fix the longitudes of an electron. When we are going to fix the longitudes of an electron, which implies that it is very difficult to calculate the momentum, and that is what is given by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. So this Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is the extension of the de Broglie wavelength, and de Broglie wavelength says that lambda equals h by m, which is modified into delta x dot delta p. If something is moving, it is very difficult to calculate its momentum. If something is at rest, it is very difficult to calculate its momentum, because when it is at rest, it is very difficult to calculate the momentum. When it is moving, it is very difficult to calculate the position vector. So this is what the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is. So here, if you want to put in a very simple scenario, the simple scenario is very simple. It says that if we have a matter and wave as a different, in classical, quantum says that matter and wave are same. Only thing is that depending upon the attributes, depending upon the surroundings, this can behave like a matter, or this can also behave like a energy. When it behaves like a matter, when it behaves like an energy, is what it matters is. Earlier classical mechanics, matter was different, energy was different, and a big ambiguity was there to explain certain properties, to understand some properties. But quantum mechanics is now a beautiful tool which says that everything in the universe is a matter wave. Everything in the universe is a matter wave. I can behave like a wave, wave can behave like me, wave can behave like a matter. And this is wonderfully demonstrated by these things. So now let us go to the extension of this matter wave behavior is photoelectric effect. So let us see what exactly is the photoelectric effect is. So what is photoelectric effect? The name itself says that photo, in the sense photons. So photo is photon. And what are these photons are doing? They are trying to produce electricity. They are trying to produce electricity, and that is of course measured using ammeter. They want to measure with respect to ammeter. So this is the basic diagram of a photoelectric effect. So what does this mean? The photons are going to produce electricity. How? When these photons are light, because light is made up of photons. So light is made up of photons. Earlier it was thought that light is made up of corpuscles, and even there it says that light is continuous. But quantum says that now light is discrete, and it is in the form of packets. So light is also it is in the form of packets. And what are the packets called as? Quanta, consisting of how much of energy? Photons. So here, when photons of light or photons of energy or light energy is going to fall on a metal plate, cathode K, metal plate is placed at cathode K, then what is happening? Electrons are shooted out. And these electrons are collected by the anode, which is measured in the ammeter. So what is happening? The photons are producing electrons. We call it as photoelectric effect. So electricity is produced when the photons are falling on the metal surface, which is mounted on the cathode. So let us see the graphical representation of this. The graphical representation is given by So we are taking different values of the photon current. So what is that we are having? We are applying some intensity. Let us assume intensity I1. I1 represents intensity. When I1 intensity of fixed monochromatic, intensity of monochromatic, mono in the sense single chromatic color, single color. In the sense we are using only one frequency. So only known frequency, single frequency of radiation is coming and falling on the cathode K. When single frequency is coming and falling on the cathode K, what is happening? The electrons are rooted out. The electrons are flowing out. So now what is happening? Exactly when the voltage is 0. Here it is 0. Still there is some finite current, photo current. But as what is happening? As the intensity is just falling on and the voltage is getting increased, what is happening? The photo current is also getting increased. After some period of time, it reaches a saturation voltage, and we call this as saturation voltage. Similarly, for intensity 2, a different frequency. When different frequency or different monochromatic is used, once again, exactly at this point, 0 voltage, still there is some current, and after that what is happening? The few electrons are released out and we are going to get this. And similarly for intensity 3 and intensity 4. So this is the diagram representation of voltage versus photocurrent of different intensities of light which is coming and falling on this cathode plate. But here, the most interesting point is, even when the circuit voltage is 0, even when the circuit voltage is 0, there are few electrons available here. Still there is some current here. Because on y-axis the x value is 0, still there is some finite. Still there is some finite value of current. There is some finite value of current. So what is happening? Even in the absence of external voltage, there are some electrons which are available. So to make this 0, what are we going to do? We are going to change the place. What is that we are going to do? We are going to make this as A and we are going to place this as K. So we are going to change the terminals now. When you are going to change the terminals, what is happening? They are connected in the reverse axis. So in the sense the anode is connected to the negative plate and cathode is connected to the positive plate. And therefore what is happening? A reverse voltage is applied. When the reverse voltage is applied, what is happening? This will come down to 0. This will come down to 0. Let us see the representation of the same thing here in this way. So these are I1, I2, I3 and I4, and this is nothing but your voltage and this is your photocurrent. So here what is happening earlier? This was the case. So exactly at this point, I1, let us assume at A, at B, at C, at D. At A, at B, at C, at D, what is the case? There are some finite amount of currents available here. So to make this, what is that we are doing? We are applying voltage in the negative axis. We are applying voltage in the negative axis. How are we applying voltage in the negative axis? By connecting anode to the negative plate and cathode to the positive plate. So what is happening? A reverse voltage is applied. And the reverse voltage is applied, what is happening? The electrons free which are available, they are getting reduced and they are coming down to 0 at particular point. And we call this as Vs. We call this as Vs or stopping potential. What is this doing? It is trying to stop the free electrons which are still available in the circuit or in the diagram. So this is going to stop the electrons. And how much voltage is required to stop the electrons is represented by this Vs. So this is the one function of this photoelectric effect is. So what is the photoelectric effect? Photoelectric effect is very simple. When photons or light of single frequency is coming and falling on a cathode plate, Electrons are emitted out, and these electrons are collected to the anode and is represented or measured with respect to ammeter, and the diagram is given in this way. But now, what is it we are doing? We are reversing the terminals so that the anode is connected to negative and cathode is connected to positive. So therefore, what is happening? The circuit is kind of reverse bias, and therefore, or reverse voltage is applied, and therefore the free electrons which are still available at this are coming down, are getting reduced, and finally at point Vs, what is happening? The free electrons are zero, and we call this as a stopping potential. So photoelectric effect exactly gives us how much photons are, or what kind of photons, or how much amount of photons are required to make this metal plate to release the free electrons. And this is nothing but E is the manifestation of, what is it called as? Matter wave. Why? Why do you call it as matter wave? Because what is happening? The waves are coming and falling on this object. So wave is coming and interacting with an object, and this object contains electrons. Let us assume these electrons are molecules or particles of mass or matter. Energy is coming and interacting with the matter, and this output is something related to what? Superposition of waves. And this is nothing but one of the manifestation of the quantum waves or quantum principles of matter wave. And this is very beautifully demonstrated. This is damn beautifully demonstrated. And we call this as photoelectric effect. So this is what the quantum mechanics fundamentals and quantum mechanics conditions is. So once again, let us recap this quantum mechanics, and then let us go to the next topic. So because of failures of classical mechanics, the quantum mechanics comes into picture, and quantum mechanics says that energy is not continuous, it is discrete, and is not a function of wavelength, it is a function of frequency, and energy is in the form of packets, and these packets contains NH where H is the photons of energy or quantum of energy, and is the number of packets. And taking this, D. Broglie has given a hypothetical statement saying that the whole universe is made up of matter wave, and he gave a simple equation for this matter wave called as a hypothetical equation, lambda equals to h by mv. And thereafter we have this Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which says that if you can calculate the position vector of a particular object, it's impossible. If we don't say impossible, we can say that it is very difficult to calculate the momentum, or if we can find the momentum, it's very difficult to calculate the position, which is given by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, leading to what? The photoelectric effect. So this photoelectric effect is nothing but when a photons of energy is coming and falling on a metal plate, free electrons are released, and these free electrons are connected to the anode. And what is that we have? We have an ammeter through which we know that there is an electron which is coming out, and this is what we call as photons producing electricity. Very good. But we need to find an equation for this. We need to find the amplitude, we need to find the wavelength, we need to find the amplitude of these wave properties of matter waves. We need to find the energy of these matter waves, for which we require to have some mathematical foundations or some mathematical equations, and that is given by Schrödinger's wave equation. So let us study Schrödinger's wave equation. Now this Schrödinger wave equation is once again classified into time dependent, and the other one is time independent. Now let us take some basic trigonometry functions what you have studied in your real classes. Basic trigonometry. Let us examine. If you are going to write a wave equation, how are you going to write a wave equation? A wave equation is represented by y equals to a sine of omega t plus or minus kx. So this is a simple wave equation. And what is the simple wave equation says that? The simple wave equation says that a equals to or y equals to a sine of omega t plus or minus kx, where omega is the frequency at a particular time period t, k is the wave number, at a distance x, and this is the whole simple wave equation. And if I want to continue, if I want to exactly combine with this basic trigonometric functions, I think we have studied this z equals to cis theta. We have studied this z equals to cis theta. What is this z equals to cis theta? It implies that z equals to cos theta plus I sin theta. Okay, so before going to all these things, let us study few fundamentals of z equals to cos theta plus I sin theta. Then let us come back to the Schrödinger equation. Now, we know that we write this equation z equals to, or let us write that our z is a function of x comma y, or this can be written z equals to cos x plus I sin. Okay, let us put in a theta very simple way there, because we have taken theta there. So z equals to cis theta, or z equals to cos theta plus I sin theta, or z equals to x plus iy for every x comma y belongs to real. This is how we used to write our classical mechanics or complex numbers. We call this as complex numbers. Okay. So we know that z equals to cos theta plus I sin theta, z equals to x plus iy for every xy belongs to R. So now we need to identify what is this x plus iy, where I is imaginary. Anyway, we know mathematically value of I. What is the mathematical value of I? I is given as square root of -1. We know that anyway, mathematically. But what is the physical interpretation of these things? What is the physical interpretation of these things? Why are we writing z equals to x plus iy? Unfortunately, we don't write z equals to y plus ix. We never write this. This is the wrong format. We have a standard notation of writing few equations, and the standard writing of few equations is that z equals to y plus ix is the wrong way of writing. We always say z equals to x plus iy. So the question is, why are we writing z equals to x plus iy? Why not z equals to y plus ix? And already we are writing that for x and y are always real. X and y are always real. But when you write this equation, why this imaginary is given to y but not to x? Similarly, cos theta and sin theta both are real. But I is only given to sin but not to cos. Why? So to know this, once again, let us go back to a basic simple fundamental concept. Let us go back to a very simple and fundamental concept. You know what is the simple and fundamental concept? This is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. Let us remember, somebody asked you to plot 2, 3 on x-axis. So what is that we will be taking? First we will be doing that 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. So first what we will be doing? We will be trying to measure these 2 on x-axis. From there we will be going to 3 on y-axis, and we plot this as 2, 3. So when we started this kind of geometrical representation, our initial reference was always that it was on x-axis. So reference was x-axis. After this x-axis was finalized, this y value was plotted with respect to the x-axis. This y value was plotted taking reference of x-axis. Therefore, y is dependent on x-axis. So when this graph theory was defined, they have defined that x is independent. X is independent and y is dependent on x. It is dependent on x. So what is that? X is independent and y is dependent on x. So anything which is independent, they call it as real. Anything which is dependent on this independent, they call it as imaginary. So here what is the case? We have taken x as an independent value and we have taken this y function which is dependent on this x value, and therefore y is dependent on x. That's the reason why whenever we get a straight line passing through origin, how do you write? Y equals to mx. So x is independent and y is a function of this independent, and therefore the complex numbers was written as z equals to x plus iy, because y is dependent on x and x is independent. And that is the reason we have z equals to x plus iy. Similarly, z equals to cis theta. Even here also we have taken z equals to cos theta plus I sin theta, because what is cos theta? Cos theta is always adjacent side. So this is our adjacent side, and adjacent side is always mostly taken on the x-axis. And what is sine? The opposite side, and opposite side is mostly taken on the y-axis. And therefore this cos is given as the real function and sine is given as the imaginary function. Anyway, these are some of the basics of trigonometric values. So here what does it mean? It means that One function is independent, the other function is dependent on this. So now we have two things, real value and imaginary value. In conditions both are real, x and y are real, but x is taken as independent and y is dependent on x-axis. That's why any functions, any variables we have, first we try to identify a variable which is independent. When this variable is independent, this independent variable is always plotted on the x-axis and dependent variable is always plotted on the y-axis. Best example, this is the best example. VI. What is this VI? V represents the voltage, I represents the current, and according to Ohm's law, this is what we are going to get. Ohm's law says that the current is always dependent on the voltage applied, and that is represented by I equals to 1 by R times of V, which is something similar to Y equals to Mx, where M is nothing but 1 by resistivity. So this is the example. Why are we taking this? Because the voltage is independent here and current is dependent on the voltage. Let us take the best example for this. What is the best example you can take? Dam. Let us take a dam. Let us assume a dam is available here. This is what the dam is. So the water is coming and stored here. So water is coming and stored here. The dam and the dam will be having gates and the gates are closed. But when we feel that the dam is full or the dam is filled, then what the people will be doing? They will be lifting the gates. When the gates are lifted up, what is happening? The water will be flowing down. So the question is, because there is a height, is the water coming down? Or because the water is coming down, there is a height? Once again, let us understand this. Let us understand this. Let us understand this. This is the dam. Let us assume that this is your dam. The water is coming and stored here. This is the dam. And here there is no water. There is no water, and here you have gates. These are the gates. So what is happening? Well, the water is coming and it is getting stored here. So water is getting stored here. So now what is happening? Because the dam is full, what exactly they are doing? They are trying to lift this gate up. So now the gate is lifted up. When the gate is lifted, what is happening? The water will be coming down. So water is coming down. So now the question is, because there is a height difference between these 2 points, that is the reason the water is coming down, or the water is coming down and it is producing this height. Let us assume the water flow is represented by W and the height is represented by H. So the water flow is the water flow producing the height, or because there is a height, the water is flowing. Which one is correct? Obviously, the second one is correct. The second one is correct because there is a height. What is happening? The water is coming down, and this height